Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, I feel like it's been, did we even see each other at Mega Camp?
Yeah, we did the podcast.
Oh, that's right. We did. I'm telling you, I'm losing it. It's like that always is such a blur for me. Yeah, sorry about that, Dana. I did actually physically sit somewhere with you and do a podcast.
I have to think about it too. It's like the last week and a half. I mean, it's just been a blur. And then, then you come back and there's just like so much to catch up on and to try to get accomplished and knock out. But yeah, it was a whirlwind for me, but it was good.
Yeah. Well, and to me, the blur is like at Mega Camp at the convention center. It's like, who did I see? Who did I not see? Whatever.
Me too. Yep. Yeah. I know. Me too. And since I had to leave a little early this time, I feel like I didn't get to see so many people that I normally see, but it's okay. It was still a really, really great time.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so you left. You had to leave early to go to an event. So let's talk about that. Let's kind of share what you got from that. It looked amazing. I was really jealous. I wanted to be at both places at once.
I know. It was so good. And, I was thinking the next one is in Austin and it's close to you. So I'm like, maybe you should just jump over to that one for one of them. It's November the 11th.
Okay.
It's right before Exchange. I don't know if you're doing Exchange this year or not, but it's actually before Exchange. We are not going to be able to, unfortunately, but I'm going to be at the high capacity.
Yeah, no, we're not going to be able to do Exchange because it's right over a regional meeting. So
yes, yeah. And then also the other high capacity, I don't have the dates on this except for I know it's March 2025, but the next small group roundtable. So let me back up. So the high capacity group was like an invite only from Chad Johnson, who works for John Maxwell, because John has shared with us a couple of times. There's like 3 or 4 groups of people that he really wants to pour into over his last years to leave a legacy in. And one is younger, up and coming business leaders who have a lot of leadership potential. And so Chad kind of put this group together. And since then, it's really evolved. There's so many great people. In fact, like my number one takeaway of these 2 days were just the people in the room, like the relationships that I have made and the people like you just, it's not that you don't love your everyday people that you work with, but it's sometimes nice to just get outside of that and hear what's working in other fields and other businesses with other people. And you just gain so much. But the small group that this has grown into now, the one that's in March of 2025, it'll be John with us. But our guest for that event that we get to spend one-on-one time with is Tim Tebow. And I'm a huge Tim Tebow fan.
Yeah.
So that'll be a really, really, really good one. But it was really cool. This time we had Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw Malcolm. I was really jealous about that.
Yeah, and he was great. He's an interesting guy. Very, very intelligent. Like super, super intelligent. But first we had John. And the thing that I like about this group, Linda, that's been a little bit different than some of the others is it's high capacity leadership, but there's like a faith element with it. So like we have a worship time before the sessions, and not if someone's there and like they don't want to do that, they don't have to do that. But John did like a special faith session. It was, I haven't even got to talk to you about this. It was unreal. Like this was in the big room. So John had like the ILC or whatever he calls it, the big thing he does in Orlando every year. So there were, thousands of coaches, of Maxwell coaches that were there. But then our group was just like a private kind of group that butted up against that. With a faith session, he opened it up to everybody. But then we had like VIP in the front and stuff. It was really cool. But it was the most incredible like time I've ever heard John preach, actually preach. At the end, Linda, he did like if you want to, give your life to the Lord or no more, whatever, over 300 people flooded to the front stage where John was and like gave their life to Christ. I mean, I was shocked. Like I was speechless. I mean, I'm just like, I'd never seen that John do that and that many people come forward. It was incredible really to watch, but we got a private Q&A with John on the front end. And then we had Malcolm Gladwell, a private Q&A lunch with him. We had some other people that speak. John went deeper on the high road leadership because he and Chris Hodges have another book coming out in September, which they gave us a copy and I actually got you one. I'll send it to you early so you'll have it. But it's Jesus, the high road leader. So it was more of like the faith one. Yeah. So he dug deep into that. But the first thing that he talked about that I thought, it's not anything like we haven't heard before, but it was so good. But I don't know if I just needed to hear it or what, but he was talking about in high road leadership, having one-way streets, because sometimes, and I'll be curious your take on this, like, have you ever got to where you're like, okay, I'm taking the high road, I'm taking the high road, I'm taking the high road. Okay, now I'm taking the high road, but I feel taken advantage of because I'm taking the high road so much that it's like, it's what John called not a two-way street. So like you begin to take the high road so much that then it's just a total one-way street. And so he said, you have to be really careful about that because when it becomes a one-way street, like that's a bad relationship. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue to take the high road to be taken advantage of. It needs to be a two-way street. Because he said, if somebody hangs out with you and you help them, then they need to be helping you in some way too. Like it can't always be just a one-way street, even though you're trying to be the high road leader all the time.
Yeah. I think in that situation, they move to a different level of relationship.
Yeah.
You can only have in your closest sphere those people where it's just an automatic two-way street, right? Yep. But I think you always take the high road. I just had this conversation the other day with somebody. Gosh, I'm seeing so many doors get closed and opportunities get shut down because we cannot be okay with other people when things don't work out.
Yeah.
It is blowing my mind. And I
just had a coaching call right before this over something that's very similar to that.
And I'm like, okay, we have got to get to a place where we just don't blow everything up when something doesn't work out, right? It's probably, God probably has a plan and he has to shut a door to get you to have another door open. And we get upset about those doors that close instead of saying, okay, God, you're shutting this door. I'm going to take the high road with this. I'm going to keep the relationships intact. Now show me the new door. Right. So I think in situations where it gets to feel like you're taking advantage, that relationship just moves to an outer level for me because I can't spend my time with people. I always like to say I can't spend my time with people who aren't laying awake at night worrying about me like I'm laying awake at night worrying about them.
So true.
So I've certainly I can only think of a few, but I've had to do that in certain situations and it's not fun, it's whatever, but again, our dreams and our goals have to be so much bigger than somebody else not doing their part the way you think they're supposed to do their part, because I'm not writing the script, God is.
Yeah. Well, and so I was just looking at my note. He said one of the biggest things that people need to realize that Jesus did as a high road leader that we need to do is that Jesus did not keep the score. And he said, as humans, we're really bad about keeping score and saying, well, I did this, and this, and you never did this, or this is blowing up now because you didn't do what you were supposed to. He just said keeping the score is great for games, but it's not for life. And if you are going to keep the score, then you aren't going to, that's not taking the high road. You're not. And he said, sometimes you're going to have to take one on the chin and turn the other cheek or whatever and roll on with it. But he said too many people are keeping the score. And he said, when you keep score, you will never measure up. And he talked a lot about that. And I thought it was just really good because I do find a lot of people. And sometimes I find myself gosh, I did this, and this for them, and they've never done anything for me. But that's keeping score.
Yeah. So true.
He also said too in this part, he said, let me find it. Okay. He said, just remember the difference between counseling and equipping people that you work with. And he said a lot of times with the environment that we've got into, and just so many people have, problems or they just make excuses. And he said, when you're counseling, you're working with someone on their weaknesses, but when you're equipping someone, you're working with them on their strengths. And he said, a lot of people need equippers right now. They don't need counselors. And he said, as a leader, have the equipping mindset, not the counseling mindset, and go to people's strengths and work with them on their strengths instead of letting them maybe stay and focus on their weaknesses, because that's not usually when you're working on your weaknesses, that's not moving the needle forward. But when you can talk about your strengths, that's when we can say, okay, this is how we're going to move the needle forward, is by working on your strengths. And I just never heard that before. And I thought that was really good.
Yeah. I just wonder, I'd love to see an example of two situations. One where a leader is actually working on their strengths and equipping them, and one where they are, you know what I mean? I think what it probably means is, if we keep having the same weakness, we redirect to the strengths. We don't keep having the same, because to me, sometimes therapy is just hashing the same thing over and over and over again. That's why I like that one certain type of therapist. I can't remember what they're called, but where they actually make you take action. Because otherwise I feel like you're just sitting there regurgitating the same crap that you've regurgitated a million times. And I don't think that moves anybody forward. So I can visualize it kind of like that, but I'd love to hear a true example of, take me through leader equipping. And then, because sometimes what you do see is the weakness that keeps getting them in the same situation. And how do you ignore that and yet equip them? Yeah, that'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah. We need to, maybe we need to figure out how to have, I don't know, make that a part of the podcast, interview two people about it, or have them do a beta test with it. I forgot this part too. They had us start at our mastermind tables with two questions. The first question we went around and answered was, what's your greatest challenge today? And then the second one was, what are you most excited about right now? And those were interesting, but it was kind of funny to see everybody's challenges, even though we're in totally different fields and spectrums and all that stuff. People still had, it was either people were a lot of people's challenges, like finding the motivated, finding talent, finding who, all of those things. Or it was a lot of people in a transitional phase. I'm doing this, I've built this, I'm not sure what's next, or I want to do something more. I want to do something more than what I'm doing now. It was a lot of transition, but then it was kind of cool to wrap up and see what people were most excited about, which was really good. We heard from two people that I had they went on the, you might have met them. Gab and Brian Bochelle. She has long red hair.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, their company, the Purpose Driven company. Yeah. So they're a part of the group too, and they spoke on passion, purpose, finding your passion, finding your purpose. But then what really hit me with them, Linda, was they talked about conviction, and they said, and I just thought this was so good. They said you have to have what you're passionate about to help you find your purpose. Your purpose is really giving the best of what you have to other people. That should be what your purpose is, because a passion, the definition of passion is a barely controllable emotion. But then if you look up the other definition of passion, it's actually the suffering and death of Jesus, the sacrifice. So they said that passion comes the emotional side is clarity, but then the suffering and death part is actually pain and sacrifice. And so they tied all of it together by saying you really can't have your passion, your purpose without the word conviction, because conviction is unreasonable certainty with sacrifice. And so they said motivation is not long lasting, but conviction is long lasting, because you have people. She said people will fall over broken glass to get something done if they're convicted about it. And I was like, gosh, that's so true. But they shared that there are 3 conviction killers. And these are the 3 things that keep people from being 100% convicted with what they want to accomplish. The first one was, and she said everyone falls into one of these 3 conviction killers. The first one is people pleasing. You're either not convicted enough because you're too worried about hurting somebody else or not pleasing somebody else or being a people pleaser. The second one is perfectionism. And so she said people who just have this major perfectionism they won't ever be as convicted as they need to about something because they're like, it's got to be perfect, or, I have to.
Yeah.
And then the third one is procrastination.
Oh,
And
wow.
and she said of the people pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination, like she had everybody in the room. She said, if you just had 1 second to look at those and think of the one that stops you from being convicted about something, like so much so, what would it be? And then everybody had to go around and share what theirs was. And then she kind of said, like, can you think of an area of a time where you like that has killed a conviction for you? And it was such a powerful exercise because everybody was like, oh yes, like this is when I was trying to please people.
Which one did you pick?
Procrastination.
Me too. That's what I would pick too.
Yeah. And I starred that one. I'm like, instantly, that's definitely the one.
You know what I think about procrastination is I think it's not enough of the right who's around you.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Enough of the right who's fixes all procrastination.
Yes, totally. Yep. And I think procrastination too is sometimes because can go a little bit into perfectionism because, and they shared this as an example, but like I procrastinate sometimes because I want to wait until it's like the perfect time or the perfect, launch or the perfect whatever.
Yeah.
And so she said that they can kind of overlap a little bit, but they talked about this thing this was really cool too, called the conviction curve. And she said that it's hard without drawing it, but in a nutshell, she said that anytime they look at somebody who's been really successful, they've seen the hockey stick of growth, which we've seen so many times. And Gary's drawn that. And we know like the hockey stick of growth and successful people look like. But she said that as the hockey stick grows, their conviction grows. They become like more and more and more convicted, which is so true. But they broke it up and said, like in the beginning, when you're at like the bottom part of the hockey stick, the beginning, it starts with 3 internal things, which are your heart. Like the number 1 was your heart. It has to feel good in your heart. Number 2 is ego, because you've got to completely get over any ego that you could possibly ever have to be able to keep going up the hockey stick. The third one is discipline. You have to start developing some sort of disciplines or you're never going to get to the top of the curve of success. And then the fourth one actually moves into external. And they said this is the hardest one for people, which kind of surprised me, but it's rejection. And they said that the test of rejection gets almost everyone every time. And that first time that you're like rejected, you either completely shut back down and go down the curve, or you push through rejection and like it fuels something inside of you and convicts you even more to like want to continue up the hockey stick. And I was like, okay, that's actually really true.
That is true. Wow.
And then after that, the next one is stewardship. Like you have to, there's something in you. Are you stewarding well what you already have?
Yeah.
Because if you aren't stewarding well what you already have, then the chances of you continuing to go up the hockey stick is going to be slim to none. And then the next 2 were building a great team and then having systems. And then at the very top of the hockey stick, which is like when you've hit the most, they said it's just the word legacy, which John's talked about, Gary's talked about, everybody's talked about that. But their definition of legacy is, will it grow without you? And it was just so good. And so they challenged us. That was actually, this conviction stuff was my biggest takeaway outside of like the faith stuff from John. But it was just like, am I really convicted about the things that I'm doing? Oh, and then she said, anytime you're looking for an opportunity or a new relationship with somebody or, whatever that is, she said at the very beginning, you have to ask yourself the question, does this opportunity or relationship allow me to give the absolute best that I have? Because if it doesn't allow you to give the best that you have, then it's not going to align with your purpose. And so she said, you've got to let it give you, it has to be able to allow you to give you the best that you have.
Wow. That's so good.
It was really, really, really good.
What did Malcolm Gladwell even have to talk about?
Oh yeah, I forgot about Malcolm. Okay, he has a new book. His old book, Tipping Point, which everyone just loves and knows. He has a new book coming out called The Revenge of the Tipping Point, and he talked a lot about the way that he feels like, he's achieved success is always through staying curious and interviewing and just always like trying to feed off of his intuition. He said, when you have a lot of instinct around what you don't know, let's see, hold on. You won't have a lot of instinct around what you don't know or what you don't feed. And so he talked a lot about as a tipping point in your business, in your life, and like anything that you're trying to accomplish, feeding into your intuition, because that's where people really have a tipping point in their business. He talked a lot about carving out and defending like your time and having no interruptions or distractions. What else did he talk about? Ironically, I don't know how he got on this tangent, but he talked a ton about parenting. And I guess maybe that's where he's at in his life right now with his kids or something. But he just talked about how like it's harder to parent these days. Here's what he said. And then he got on a rant about people being really like just how we treat people today and a lot of like the politics that are going on and just stuff like that. And he gave the example. This was really good. He said, take two people that are the absolute furthest apart politically. Like one is so far left and one is so far right that they could not get any more further apart. And he said, and ask them to share the 20 things that are most important to them in their life. And he said, I would lay any amount of money that 17 of the 20 things would be the same that they would talk about. And so he said, we talk about the other three way too much than talking about the things that people might have like in common or the things that they care about. And that's like completely separating us from like building bridges instead of we're getting way too far apart. He said, you're intuitive where you're gifted. And then if you combine that with where you have experience and work on it, that's the tipping point. Like you'll experience such a tipping point. Yeah, it was good. He was kind of fast. And then I'm trying to read what else he said. Just a lot about calendaring and time, which were great reminders. Like, don't waste your best time. Do your best work during your best time. He said, like, for some people, it might be at night. So like, don't try to force yourself to do work in the morning if you're a night. I mean, he just said that there's like little things that he's learned that have given him the advantage or made the tipping point.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really good. Lots of great takeaways. Just so many great people in the room. I mean, such great stories. But I was going to tell you, you've got to get this book if you haven't already read it. So Dave Martin was he's been with John. I feel like you might have met him before. He's such a great guy. He's a business leader, author, pastor, but he wrote this book and it's kind of old. It might be 10 years old, but it's called The Force of Favor. And it's 7 ways to increase your favor. And I just have been flying through it. It is so good. So good.
I think I'm going to just lock myself in San Diego next week and do nothing but catch up on books and courses. And I don't think I have a long enough time there.
I know. Sometimes it feels so good to do that, though.
Yeah.
Just to knock it out. But I'll tell you, like, and this is, this too, but every time I'm with John, I leave just feeling like, man, he is just so intentional with it's just like intentionality is the difference maker. I mean, he is so intentional.
Well, and it's another reason, Dana, why we want to, everything those people said, John is accomplished, and everything Malcolm Gladwell is saying, John is accomplished. It makes us want to hurry and get to that spot where you can just do that.
Yeah.
You're, you know what I mean? You're so convicted. You've got through all the other mess. You know what doesn't matter and what does matter. And you're able to do that. And that's what we're seeing there. We're seeing the fruits of his labor of being steadfast in the same thing for so long.
Yeah.
Getting more and more conviction about it. The problem with we don't go deep enough on anything. We quit too soon. We jump over to the next shiny thing, and you can't get to where someone like John has gotten by doing that.
Yeah, he definitely talked about that a ton. And he said that as long as your passion and your purpose is in it, like that's that's what you have to do. You just have to stay consistent. He talked about perseverance a lot too, just like, especially right now, people wanting to quit, people wanting to give up. Yeah. And he did a good lesson on perseverance, just continuing the race, like find a way to give the best of what you have, like the whole purpose thing. And then just continuing to persevere, until you get it. It's true. Like what you just said, Linda, made me think about, though. It's exactly what Dan Sullivan, I mean, think about how much time, what is he spending in his unique ability now? Like 100%, 90?
100%. If not, it's 99.9.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's kind of like 10X is easier than 2X.
Yep.
You really get the premise of what that says. You've got to get rid of, it's like Michelangelo, you got to get rid of all the other things that are keeping that from happening. And that's what we don't do.
Yeah.
We stay stuck in the same issues causing us issues over and over, instead of saying, okay, I got to get rid of that because it's the piece that's keeping me from getting more and more into my unique ability.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. Yeah. It's definitely, it's challenging, especially I feel like right now with just our industry, and I don't know, I'm just having so many different conversations of people that, a lot of changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And this too shall pass.
Totally.
It's just we're in such the messy, hard part that, I think, and one thing I would say to people right now is don't make a life-changing decision in this hard spot.
Yep, never.
Come through the hard spot, then make a life decision. But I think we make knee-jerk wrong decisions in the hard spots.
Yeah, totally.
Right here. Don't make them right here.
Yeah.
Get through the hard spot, get to a soft landing space, then make any hard life-changing decision that you'd make.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, wait, I had one more. Okay, this is the last thing. And this was one of the things that he talked a lot about in his faith session. But this question was so good. He just talked a lot about like how Jesus lived such an attractive life that everybody, wanted to follow him and like have more of him and all those things. And so he had everyone write down the question, does my life make people hungry for God or angry at God? And he said everyone, because he said we have so many like Christians out there that, just make people pissed off at God because of how they live or the way they treat people or what they do. And he said that he just wished that everybody who's a person of faith would ask themselves, does my life make people hungry for God or angry at God? And he said, like, the more that we can continue to ask ourselves that question, then, we might find out more stuff about ourselves, but also he feels like people would continue to just want to be a light instead of maybe discouraging at times other people.
Gosh, you know how when the same message keeps coming back to you like several times?
Yeah.
When you have this little spot in your life, just this little one, just a little one. But you keep hearing the message.
Yeah.
Oh God, that hurts always because I
know.
True. Oh my gosh. I bet this is about the fourth time I've heard that lesson.
Wow.
And it's just a little spot that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what? I feel like everybody has a little spot. You know what I mean? It's like everybody has like something that they just have to work on and get better at, or I don't know, pray about or figure it out. But when I heard that too, I was like, man, that's just, it's speaking of conviction, it's convicting to think about that.
Yeah, it is. And when that spot in Fierce where she's having that, the software guy company is having that fierce conversation with one of his employees.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, what do you think your next step is? And she says, it's an apology and I suck at apologies.
Yeah.
That's usually what it means.
Yeah. I forgot about that. That's a good part though. Good story.
Awesome. Well, so this is so good, Dana. Gosh, it sounds like it was an amazing event. I'm going to try to put it on my calendar for the November one. I'd love to.
I know. I'll send you the link. I'll remind you. Oh, wait, crap. Here's one more. Everybody kept calling John the goat when he like everybody be like, oh, here's the goat. The John's the greatest of all time. Like he's the goat. And John came out and he sat down and he said, I just want to tell you all, you're only a goat because of the people that are around you. There are a bunch of little mini goats around you when you are a goat. And he said, so like, never forget that when someone calls somebody the greatest of all times, like it's not that person. It's because they had so many great little mini goats around them that made them. And I was like, John, that is so good.
That is so good. So good. I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm sure we could go on all day long, but we will wrap this up. And remember, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please hit that button right now. The greatest compliment you could pay Dana and I is to pass this podcast along to anyone that you think would enjoy our conversations. And certainly we would love a 5-star review. That helps us get found and seen in the podcast world. And if you have a challenge, an opportunity, a guest, or a question, and you'd love to come on the podcast, and or you want an author that you love their book and you'd love for Dana and I to reach out and get them on the podcast. We love getting authors on the podcast, don't we, Dana?
Hey, I need to ask. I'll ask Dave to come on.
Oh, yes, let's do. Please
you
do.
You will love him. Oh, I'm going to message him today. Yes.
That's awesome. So if you have a guest, Dana and I always have someone in mind, but if you have someone in mind, reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. We'll do our best to get that amazing author on here so that we can ask them the questions we're all dying to ask. So Dana, I'm glad to see you. And yes, I did see you at Mega Camp at the podcast, but I meant in the convention center.
I know, which I didn't see you there, I don't think. So that's accurate.
Okay, awesome. So people don't think I'm losing my mind. Anyway, have a great day and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.